Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, we're going to tackle the bin of Boxwoods. One of our Minnesota Bonsai Society members has been in and out of the state and has kept in contact, is now back in Minnesota. And she used to work for a nursery, or had access to a nursery that produced a lot of little boxwoods. And she heard that her son-in-law was no longer going to work at this nursery anymore. That was her connection. And if I got the story right, she knew there were some boxwoods that they were trying to maybe get rid of and trying to get down their number of boxwoods. And so she said, yeah, you know, I'll take all the odd ones and whatever you can just throw my way. And so she brought them to Minnesota, or had them shipped, and then she's been having them for sale at the Minnesota Bonsai Society. So we have a whole bunch of boxwoods. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I want to do is I want to give them just a little bit of a haircut so they're easier to water in the cold frame. So regardless of which cold frame they go into, they're going to be hard to water if there's so much foliage on top, and I have, from a distance, I have to squirt some water. Will it get into the soil? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the bottom layer taken care of. So we've got the name tags here. We do have Kingsville. So these are Kingsville boxwoods. We don't typically have boxwoods of the Kingsville variety in Minnesota, so this is super nice to have some Kingsville. So this one is a Kingsville. We'll be getting that one trimmed up. And then this one right here, we got the variegated. And let me see, this one is the Buxus Semp, or Eleganticinia. I think that's how you pronounce that. Yeah, Eleganticinia. So elegant, right? That would be my assumption. This variegated, super pretty. Got this one too, and it just bushed out a lot here since it's been at my house. It's been at my house most of the summer, and I haven't done anything with these. I've kept them in these nursery pots. So we're going to go ahead and just give these just a slight little trim. Now this one, you can see most of the soil. It's not very wide. I'm not going to be too worried about this one not getting too much water. So I don't want to cut too much out. And I might leave these to grow all next year. I might up pot them into the next bigger pot and just let them take off. Kind of like having them in the ground. When we put some of our trees in the ground, of course they can grow fast. But sometimes they grow too fast in certain areas, get too aggressive, and we might want to have more control of them. It's all personal taste. Some people put them back in the ground. I do not put a lot of trees back in the ground because, as I've mentioned on previous shows, I like to work on the tree from the ground up, from the very birth of this tree, either a fresh cutting or a small tree from a nursery stock, and just let it grow as a bonsai. So this one, the soil line looks like it's gone down a little bit because we can see a little bit of fun root flaring out there, almost kind of like fingers or the feet of this. So when we get this into a pot, this could be a root over rock candidate. This could be kind of a fun one. Has a little bit of a slant to one side. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a peek at this and see if there's a couple of spots that we can just take off some of the bottom foliage to prepare it for next year. There's a couple spots down here where there's some dead spots where it was cut before. And we have a little bit of a bulge on this one if we're not careful. So I'm going to go ahead and get these little guys out of there. All right. And so down here, yeah, if you can see right here, we've got one branch off to the side here, one branch here. This one's coming off in the middle, actually off of this one right here. So 1, 2, 3. And then on this side, we have a whole bunch of little ones, one that was cut off here and one growing up here. It's kind of messy down there. 4, 5, 6 branches. That's just going to get really super thick. As a matter of fact, when you look at it from this side right here, we go from thin to really thick right here. We want it the opposite. We want it to be thick and then thinner up here. So we are going to cut off something there to help promote thicker to thinner instead of thin to thicker. I'm just going to cut down this bottom branch right there. It's super thick down there. I'm going to cut off this next one. It's a double. We're going to cut all that off right there. Look at that. It had a lot of growth on there. All right. So now, that looks like that could be some nice movement of a main trunk right there. So I'm gonna get rid of this little tiny guy here off to the side. That one doesn't make much sense. And again, there's some places where branches have died off right here. There's a little tiny branch on the inside right here. Let me just reach in there and snip that one out of there. And there's that one. See, we grab that one out of there. And now from this side, got some dirt in my mouth there. You can see there's a little bit of separation here now. Yeah, so this kind of swoops up right here from this this trunk to stuff down here, swoops up here. Then this is the main branch right here. And these two side branches, or these three branches that I mentioned earlier on, 1, 2, 3, that's just way too much stuff going on down there. It's making this great big bulgy area. I'm gonna cut off some of these little tiny growers here. It's nice that we got all this back budding though. I love to see that. We know that in the future, I'm gonna be able to get some back budding on this guy. All right, so I just had a little bit of more live growth, these really small live ones in there. And I've got this guy right here, little tiny thing right there. Let's get this one off right there. Okay. So now you can kind of see in there just a little bit. Now I like the movement of this part right here, but there's a lot of tree over on this side, so when I cut into this, it's going to be quite a wound for a while. We don't know how that's going to heal. But I am going to cut this middle one off. I don't like this middle one. So there's a big branch. You might be able to get a cutting out of that. So we'll try that. So that's a little bit messy in there now. So that shows now 3 branches. So here's the main branch I'm thinking of the tree. It's kind of, again, it swoops in, comes back out, and then it moves back towards me here and it goes up real tall, and it's got this new growth right here. And then we've got this branch off to this side and this branch off to there. So I have a trunk that splits into 3. That's still too much movement in there, too much action in there. I'll cut off the inside branch in here. And if you can see right here on the cut, we got these little itty bitty, beautiful little young, super nice and pale new growth. This thing was enjoying life until the last minute out there. We're gonna put it back in the cold frame, or actually in the cold frame. These were outside, just on the porch area, the deck, if you will, of my fish pond up there near the cabin. So I've opened this up a little bit, and I have to decide if I want to take anything more off today. I think I have plenty of air in here to water this thing, and we'll worry about the tree next year. We'll worry about the tree next year. Is there anything up here we can kind of maybe hint into some new growth? I think I'll cut this just a little shorter there. I'll just kind of cut some of these down. We got plenty of growth below it. It's kind of just shaving it off here to give it just a little bit of shape. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not concerned about real specific design. I just wanted to clean that up so we could water it. Let's do the other variegated first, and then we'll tackle the Kingsville. All right, let's get some weeds in there. So here's a real fun one. So again, it has some really funky root pattern down there. Roots that go in, you got one that kind of goes up and down this way, one that really flows really nice in the back here. This one flows down right here. That's super nice. And one kind of towards the camera, one in the back. And again, I can reach this to water it pretty good, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna help this one out a little bit. Just get some of this bottom stuff cleaned up. I'm gonna take this little branch right off here. We don't need that one down there. And as you can see now, when I open that up, you can see some of that nice movement on that bottom of that trunk. This is a fun looking tree. It splits really nice back there. Can you see that split? I like this one. We got an inside branch. We got actually two branches here. There we go. This one's growing down. This one's too close to the other branches. Let's get rid of that. So we just cleaned up that bottom section there, right? And again, I'm not going to do too much with this. This is an inside branch right here. I have to sharpen my scissors. That didn't come out really good. There we go. I was next to another little bump there, so the scissors didn't get to the right spot. Right. Got a lot of inside branches in here. And that was totally grown on the inside. We have a spot in this tree right here. Right here there's about 4 or 5 branches all growing from that spot there. Way too much for the future. Got one way on the inside. Look at that. That could be another cutting. That could be a cutting. That could be a cutting. We'll try those cuttings. Again, I'm not going to style this too much anymore tonight here. I just want to make sure that I can have good access to water in this guy. But some of these branches, when there's 5 in an area, we can certainly make some progress right away. Try to get this one ready for growing. There's a big inside branch in here, but I don't want to mess with that quite yet. I don't think. Actually, I think I will. That's super bulky in there, so here's a big branch. Let's get this one out of there. There we go. Peel that off. Peel that off. Another cutting. So there we go. We're going to stop right there. So I just freed up this inside space right in here. So we do have this kind of tree that's kind of splitting into 2. Let's go ahead and do the same thing I did in the last tree. Get rid of some of these tips just for balancing the tree for next year. And here we go. Okay, we have another variegated ready to go out into the cold frame. Okay, so now we're going to grab one of the big beasts. These are the Boxwoods now. And again, if these are all close together, like in this bin, you're not going to be able to get water to the soil very well. So I want to make sure that we can get rid of some of these branches. This one looks like a really fun tree. It's got a nice thick nabari down there, but with a really wild root right here. There's a root that comes up out of the soil and back down in the back. So we'll have to work on that when we repot it. There's so much going on in here, I really can't see. My fan in my room just kicked off. So it's been on for about 15 minutes, goes off for about 15 minutes every hour. Help keep this room with fresh air circulating around with all the humidity in here. So from my angle back here, I'm looking in here and cutting branches that are going straight down just to see if I can see the bottom of this tree a little bit better. So what I just did there is I essentially cleaned that area up a little bit, right? And like here's a dead branch right there. There's no sunlight getting back in here. So we got to come in here, and this branch almost completely died off here. We can take that off. I have some death, but some life. lot of stuff going on here. Just way too many branches. Super thick, growing super wonderful from the nursery that it came from, and then in my backyard this year. So just I love the massive growth. Big section here that's kind of dead and dying. There's some little tiny new ones trying to shoot out, a whole bunch of little old ones in here. So there's the look from that side now. I'm just trying to get underneath there and get some of the branches that are kind of dying off. And there's just so much movement here. Some of these lower hanging ones I can just clip off right now. Because again, we're going to be watering this thing. Maybe putting a couple of these in pots next year. Maybe selling a few to some Minnesota bonsai folks. We'll see. So yeah. So again, if we can look inside that tree right there, there's all kinds of thickness in there. There's all kinds of branches. Really kind of a cool little tree already. But super thick down in there. We always want to typically be able to see through our tree in a couple spots, imagining a bird flying through there. So right here, I just cleared this area right here so you could see through there to my finger. So things like that. And again, making sure that water gets down in here in the cold frame and things don't dry off, because the water just goes over the foliage and goes out to the edge. And again, I'm kind of doing like a hedge prune right now on some of these because I want to just have access for that water to find the pot. And we'll do more styling stuff next year. I'm not going to worry about too much of this. When we get in there and take a peek at it, put it in a new pot, we'll find out which branches can come out more like that. Lots of back budding in here. Too small and deep in there to show on camera. But if you can see that, what a fun little boxwood there with some great movement already and a big old branch right there. We could even cut that one off, but there's one that goes to my right, your left, and one goes to my left, your right. Both similar thicknesses. Just some neat movement in there. One going straight down there. Yeah, some super fantastically thick growth in here. Just loved life in the backyard this year. Okay, so I don't want to do much more to it there. I can get my water bottle, when I squirt from a distance, I can get water in there and it's going to be just fine. So there's one of the big ones. Let's pull out another one. Look at this one. Can we see that bend right there? It's curving up and going that way. And it looks like a big old gnarly trunk system there that when we repot, we're gonna have to fix that a little bit, of course. But we got some, we can see soil here pretty decently. So let's work on a couple more trees. We've made quite a mess here, but we have some really fun looking trees right here. So here's 3 of the trees right now. They've got some character already. All I really did was compact them in, just kind of a hedge prune. Got rid of some interior branches that were way inside and skinny and small, and they're just not going to amount to much. We got to air these things out in the middle and show some prominent branching. So when we repot these, maybe next spring, or maybe we'll let these small ones get into the bigger size. So there's 3 little ones. Interesting stuff here. Here's a nice big trunk on that one. That has the wide trunk. Yeah, we'll see what that one can develop into. This one's got a really fun lean to it. Kind of a bulge here on this root pattern here, but again, we can make it cut some of these off and make it go this way and come swirl that way. So kind of some fun angles in there. And then this one has some fun angles too. This one has kind of a thick upper section again. Right in here, right after this curve of this trunk here, we've got some movement in there, but a lot of branches. We'll have to thin it out even more so next year. And then the 2 variegated. So those you can see the tree a little bit better. We've got splitting real nice here for a kind of a twin trunk look. This one has 3. Remember how thick this was up top? And we made that a lot thinner. It looks a lot thinner from this side. You see that? How it looks thinner compared to right there? Or if I show you this side, see how wide that part looks right there? So we'll have to do some adjusting on that as well. But that's all we're going to do for today on the Boxwoods. So we got some variegated, we got the Kingsville here. We're going to put these in the cold frame so they're really nice and protected. And now when I go to water these things from a distance, there's a lot of space for the water to get in there to the plant, and I won't miss them and just put it all over the cold frame floors, right? So there are the Boxwoods. Before we go today, let's quickly do an update on the cold frame, the garage and the cabin cold frame. Let's take you outside for a quick update on those 2. So for today's update, I'm going to take a peek inside the garage cold frame. We're going to check to see how things are going. So let's go ahead and undo the top, and we'll open up the garage cold frame and see where we're at. So the lights are on, the fans are on. I added a couple more of my smaller cuttings into the front rows of the boot trays. You can see the leaves moving from the fans. So the fans are working, keeping it nice and airy in here. I still haven't cut off the leaves yet. We'll go ahead and trim off some of these leaves so we don't have any extra leaves where we don't want them. And then down there is the spruce tree from the harvest. And then we got a couple of trees over there. Got the cutting of the Japanese maple to the left. We have the Kishu juniper, another Japanese maple, and then the trident hanging out down there. The fans are on, the lights are on, and the temperature, I think it says about 50 degrees. So we're still a little warm, but we in Minnesota are excited for the next weekend coming up here, because we're going to be up into the 60s again for this Saturday and Sunday. So this is that time in Minnesota where we do the bonsai shuffle, right? Do I keep trees outside, all that extra sunlight, just a little bit extra time out there in the full glory of the sun, or do you keep them in the cold frame? Well, with lows into the 20s a couple days in a row here, although it never really got much below 30 at my house, I probably could have left everything out for another full week. But it's a lot of work to go back and forth. These are tucked away here. I've got a few more outside that I'm still wavering on. So we'll let those stay outside all through next weekend and maybe through next week, and then we'll get those in the cold frame. There are a couple of trees in the cabin cold frame, so let's give that one a check as well. So the cabin cold frame with the evening sun all closed up. Let's take a peek. So I've got the boxwood, the big one up here in the corner, and I've got a couple cuttings from my willows. Even though they're cold hardy, the willows, the weeping willows, the critters just absolutely love. And we've got a couple of my barberries in here. We've got one right down here, we've got one right over here, and there's one back up there in the corner. One of my small boxwoods back in the corner there. We got a couple that we're going to go ahead and work on later on this evening. Here's my other willow on the peninsula. We're keeping that thing inside so the critters leave it alone. My Japanese quinces are in here. And this one is, well, I've got a red twig dogwood, and I've got a dogwood that I have to look up the name of this. I'll put this on in post-production, but it's got kind of more of a yellow bark when it's new. So there's the yellow bark right there. I think we have some death right here. This is really awfully dark, but the tree is still alive up here. We're gonna hope for some survival next year. And then I have a couple of my cotoneasters in here. Got the Kishu junipers that are in this these training pots with the seedlings from the neighbor's yard. We have a lot of space in here. I got that whole shelf down there yet. I've got all the floor space, but that big maple is gonna have to sit right here. And the temperature in this cold frame, look at that, it's also 49 degrees. So these are both kept right at about 49 degrees, the garage and the cabin. We are ready for the cold weather, even though we're gonna have a nice weekend coming up. I might pull some of these out and put them on the deck for some extra sun this weekend. So there's the update on the garage and the cabin cold frames. One other quick update I forgot to talk about was I got some of the fish into the fish tank. So I got 3 of my koi. I'm still trying to find the 4th one in the pond outside. But the koi are swimming and loving life in the 75-gallon tank that's in my old plant room. They just got the whole thing to themselves this year, 4 of them. The other goldfish are gonna stay out in the pond this year. I got a de-icer and I got a bubbler out there. We're gonna see if we can keep them alive out there. They'll just go dormant, sit at the bottom of that pond, and should be okay. So the koi back inside loving their new home as well. Super nice to have the cold frames working the way they're supposed to. All the temperatures right around 49 degrees. The fans are going off and on. The lights are going off and on. The heat probably hasn't kicked in except for maybe in the middle of the night when we hit closer to 28 degrees. But with that insulation and those cold frames, the temperature's been staying really even keel. Most of the temperature for the evening, morning and evening hours, staying within 3 degrees. So hardly any movement. And in the daytime, we are getting warm. And when we hit 60 this weekend, the garage will be 60, and I'll keep that cold frame cold because I don't want it to get too terribly warm in there, because I do want these to start to go into that dormancy period since they're there already. I could do the bonsai shuffle. I could bring some trees out, but I'm just gonna leave them where they are and be done with those and just enjoy the trees that are still outside on the bench. Hey, that does it. We got some boxwoods all trimmed up so we can water them in the cold frame next. Thank you so much for watching. Click like. Subscribe if you haven't already. Tell all your friends and bonsai enthusiasts about the channel. I greatly appreciate that. And any more shows or comments, questions, concerns, hey, keep them coming. I try to respond to everything because I love sharing knowledge with you, and I love when you share knowledge with me. Absolutely love it. Take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll see you on the next show.